The crystal towers of Kepler 442b shook as another wave of enemy ships passed overhead. High Mystic Veltar pressed her six-fingered hands against the cold stone floor of the great library and felt the vibrations through her crystalline body. Each tremor meant more of her people were dying. "How much time do we have left?" she asked without looking up from the ancient texts spread before her. Scholar Krindar checked the energy readings on his wrist device. The blue glow from his bioelectric field flickered weakly. "The planetary shields will fail in 8 hours. Maybe less." Veltar nodded and turned another page of the weathered book. For 3 months she had searched through every record in their archives. The Void Swarm had consumed 3 of their 4 moons already. Their once mighty fleet of 300 ships was down to 27, all badly damaged. The enemy seemed endless, their dark ships regenerating faster than the Zephyrians could destroy them. "Here," she whispered, pointing to a faded passage written in the old trader's script. "Listen to this." Krindar moved closer as she read aloud. "Beyond the rim worlds, in the system called Sol, live the Deathworlders. They are born from a planet so harsh that it breeds warriors unlike any other. Even the feared Corvin pirates speak their name in whispers. They call themselves ... Terrans. Deathworlders?" Krindar's voice carried doubt. "Veltar, these are legends. Stories told by drunk traders in spaceports." She continued reading. "Their world has crushing gravity, poisonous storms, and creatures that hunt in packs. Yet they survived. They learned to fight everything, even each other. When they finally reached the stars, they brought their warrior ways with them." Another explosion shook the library. Dust fell from the ceiling as the planetary defense grid took another hit. Through the tall windows, they could see the orange glow of fires burning in the capital city below. "Even if these Terrans exist," Krindar said, "how could we possibly contact them? Sol 3 is hundreds of light years away." Veltar turned to the next page and smiled for the first time in weeks. "There is a way. An old summoning ritual. The traders wrote that desperate beings have called upon the Terrans before. When worlds face extinction, when all hope is lost, the Deathworlders answer." She pointed to a diagram showing a complex pattern of symbols and energy lines. "It requires a massive amount of power, channeled through specific formations. The ritual opens a path across space and time, calling the warriors to battle. Summoning magic? Veltar, our people stopped believing in such things centuries ago." "What choice do we have?" she asked, looking directly at him. "Our technology has failed. Our weapons cannot stop them. Our allies have abandoned us. If magic is all we have left, then we use magic." The building shook again, harder this time. Warning. Sirens wailed across the city as more enemy ships broke through the weakening shields. They had minutes, not hours. Veltar gathered the ancient books and stood up. "Call the council. Tell them to meet me in the Grand Temple. We need every mystic we have left." 20 minutes later, the last 7 members of the Zephyrian High Council stood in a circle within the Grand Temple. The massive chamber had once hosted celebrations and ceremonies for millions of citizens. Now it was empty except for the desperate leaders of a dying world. The temple's crystal walls still hummed with stored energy from centuries of rituals. Veltar had studied the ancient texts carefully. If the summoning was to work, they needed to channel everything they had left into the calling. "Are you certain about this?" asked Councilmember Drixon. His usually bright blue biofield was dim with exhaustion. "What if we summon something worse than the swarm?" "The texts speak of honor-bound warriors," Veltar replied as she drew the summoning symbols on the temple floor with concentrated energy. "Beings who protect the innocent and fight against overwhelming odds. If such creatures exist, they are what we need." The other council members took their positions around the ritual circle. Each one placed their hands on the energy focal points Veltar had marked. The pattern began to glow as their combined bioelectric fields activated the ancient formation. Focus. Your thoughts on our need, Veltar instructed. Picture warriors strong enough to face the swarm. Imagine protectors who will not abandon us in our darkest hour. The energy built slowly at first, then faster as the mystics poured their remaining strength into the ritual. The crystal walls of the temple began to resonate, amplifying their power and sending it outward into space. Outside, the void swarm ships moved closer to the planet's surface. Their dark hulls absorbed light and energy, making them look like holes in space itself. The creatures that commanded them cared nothing for the beautiful crystal cities below. They saw only matter to be consumed. Inside the temple, the summoning circle blazed with brilliant light. Veltar felt the energy surge, beyond anything she had ever experienced. The ritual was working, but something felt different than what the ancient texts described. Instead of a small, focused calling, the energy kept growing and spreading. I cannot control it, she shouted over the roar of power flowing through the chamber. The signal is too strong. The energy burst outward from the temple like a shockwave, racing through space faster than light itself. What Veltar had intended as a mystical summoning became something far more powerful. The desperate plea of a dying world punched through dimensions and reached across the galaxy. In the depths of space, humanity's deep monitoring stations detected the signal. Advanced computers translated the alien message automatically. What appeared on their screens was not magic, but a clear distress call from an unknown species facing extinction. The message was simple and desperate. Help us, please. We are dying. Our world burns. Send warriors. Send hope. Back on Kepler 442b, the ritual circle finally went dark. The exhausted council members collapsed to the temple floor, their bioelectric fields nearly extinguished. They had given everything they had to the summoning. Did it work? Krindar asked weakly. Veltar stared up at the crystal ceiling as explosions continued to light up the sky outside. I do not know. We can only wait and hope that somewhere in the darkness, warriors heard our call. She had no idea that her desperate ritual had just triggered the largest military response in human history. The Deathworlders were coming, but not as she had imagined. They were coming as an entire fleet. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alert came through. The bridge of the UE Zithines had been quiet during their patrol of the Outer Rim colonies. Nothing ever happened out here. That changed in an instant. Captain, we're receiving an emergency transmission, called Communications Officer Maria Santos. Her voice carried excitement and confusion. It's not from any human source. Jake set down his coffee cup and walked to her station. What do you mean, not human? Sir, the signal came from outside our space. Way outside. The computer is translating it now, but the language patterns are completely unknown. Maria's fingers danced over her controls. Captain, I think we just received our first message from aliens. The main screen flickered to life, showing the translated text. Jake read it twice before the words really sank in. The message was desperate and clear. An unknown species was facing extinction and begging for military help. Get me Admiral Sullivan immediately, Jake ordered. Priority 1 emergency channel. Within minutes, the signal reached Earth's Terran Defense Command. Admiral Kate Sullivan was in her office reviewing supply reports when her aide burst through the door without knocking. Admiral, you need to see this right now. Kate looked at the message on her tablet and felt her heart race. First contact with an alien species, and they were asking humanity for help. She immediately called an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. The war room filled quickly with the top military leaders on Earth. Admiral, Sullivan stood at the head of the table as holographic displays showed the alien message at long range. Sensor data from the signal's origin point. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a drill," she announced. "We have confirmed contact with an intelligent alien species. They appear to be under attack and facing complete destruction. Commander Ryan." Blake studied the tactical displays. "Admiral, we know nothing about these beings. This could be a trap or some kind of test. I recommend we send a small scout force first." Dr. Lisa Chun, the head of xenobiology, shook her head. "Commander, look at the energy signatures from there. System. Those readings suggest massive warfare on a scale we've never seen. If this is real, they may not have time for careful first contact procedures." The debate continued for several minutes. Some argued for caution, others for immediate action. Admiral Sullivan listened to all sides before making her decision. "If someone is calling for help, we answer," she said firmly. "That's who we are. As a species, we don't abandon people in need, human or otherwise." She turned to her aide. "Order the Third Fleet to assemble. Full deployment." The response was immediate and massive. Across human space, warships received emergency orders to converge on Earth's primary naval base. The Third Fleet was humanity's largest and most powerful military force, designed to protect all human colonies from any threat. Captain Ben Rodriguez received his orders while his ship, the U.E.C. Falcon, was docked for repairs. His elite strike team had been on leave, but within hours they were back on board and preparing for the unknown. "What do we know about these aliens?" asked his second-in-command, Lieutenant Sam Cooper. "Almost nothing," Ben replied, checking his. "Equipment. They're in trouble. They asked for help, and that's enough for me." Lieutenant Colonel Amy Watson's Marine forces loaded onto transport ships with practiced efficiency. Her soldiers were the best humanity had to offer, trained for any combat situation. But fighting alongside aliens against unknown enemies would be a first for everyone. Marines were about to make history, she told her troops over the ships. Communication system. We're going to be the first humans to fight beside another intelligent species. Make sure we give them a good first impression. The flagship U.E.'s Retribution prepared to lead the fleet into unknown space. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge, watching as 47 warships, 12 carriers, and dozens of support vessels formed up around her. Over 15,000 human beings were about to risk their lives for people they had never met. Commander Lucas Hayes led the fighter squadrons through final preparations. His pilots were nervous but excited. They had trained for combat against human enemies, pirates, and theoretical alien threats. Now they would face the real thing. "Remember your training," he told them over the radio. "We don't know what we're flying into, but we go in together and we come home together." Chief Engineer Tony Garcia worked frantically to upgrade the fleets. Translation systems. If they were going to fight alongside aliens, they needed to be able to communicate clearly during battle. "The computer systems are learning from the original message," he explained to Admiral Sullivan. "By the time we reach their space, we should be able to talk to them in real time." Dr. Chun prepared first contact protocols while trying to understand what little information they had about the alien species. The message suggested they were desperate and possibly not as technologically advanced as humans. "We need to be careful," she warned the Admiral. "We don't know their culture, their biology, or their motivations. What seems like a cry for help could mean something completely different to them." Maria Santos worked to send messages ahead of the fleet, trying to tell the aliens that help was coming. She wasn't sure if her transmissions were getting through, but she kept trying anyway. "Unknown species. This is the Terran Defense Fleet," she broadcast repeatedly. "We received your distress call. Military assistance is en route. Please respond." With your current status, the fleet finished its preparations in record time. Ships that normally took days to ready for deployment were ready in hours. The urgency of the situation drove everyone to work beyond their normal limits. Admiral Sullivan gave the final order from the bridge of the Retribution. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. We're about to make humanity's first contact with an alien species under combat conditions. Remember that we represent all of Earth out there. Show them what humans are capable of. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. As one massive unit, 47 warships carrying humanity's finest warriors raced through folded space toward a distant world where desperate aliens waited for salvation. What had begun as a mystical summoning ritual was about to become the most important military operation in human history. The aliens had asked for warriors, and humanity was sending them an entire fleet dock in the depths of hyperspace. The Terran Third Fleet hurtled toward its destiny, completely unaware that the beings they were rushing to save believed they had summoned magical warriors through ancient ritual. The misunderstanding would soon become the foundation of the greatest alliance the galaxy had ever seen. High Mystic Veltar knelt in the ruins of the Grand Temple, her crystalline body dim with exhaustion. 2 days had passed since the summoning ritual. The Void Swarm had destroyed half of their capital city, and the planetary shields were failing rapidly. She had begun to believe their desperate call for help had failed. Then Scholar Krindar burst through the damaged temple doors, his bioelectric field flickering with excitement despite his injuries. Veltar, the sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions at the edge of our system, he gasped. Something is coming through hyperspace. She stood up slowly, afraid to hope. How many ships? That's impossible to say. The energy signatures are unlike anything we've ever seen. Our computers cannot identify the technology, but the mass readings are enormous. Outside the temple, the surviving Zephyrian defense fleet hung in orbit around their dying world. Admiral Dexra commanded the last 23 ships, all badly damaged from weeks of fighting the Void Swarm. His flagship had lost main power twice in the last day alone. Admiral, his sensor officer called out, unknown vessels are dropping out of hyperspace. I count. No, that cannot be right. Report. Dextra snapped. 47 ships, sir. All of them larger than our heaviest cruisers. They're maintaining position at the system's edge. Vextra stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Where had these ships come from? The Void Swarm had cut off all escape routes from their system weeks ago. No Zephyrian colony fleet was powerful enough to challenge the Swarm. Aboard the UE's Retribution, Admiral Kate Sullivan studied the devastation visible on the main screen. 3 moons had been completely stripped of matter, leaving only metallic debris fields. The 4th moon was half gone, its surface crawling with dark ships that seemed to absorb light itself. My God, she whispered, what are those things? Captain Jake Morrison stood beside her on the bridge. The computer identifies them as biomechanical constructs. They appear to be consuming matter and using it to repair and reproduce themselves. How many? Estimates range from 800 to over 1,000 individual ships. They're everywhere. Jake pointed to the tactical display. But look at this. There are other ships near the planet. Different technology, similar to our own. Designs. Dr. Lisa Chun worked frantically at the science station. Admiral, I'm detecting life signs on the planet's surface. The species appears to be silicon-based with natural bioelectric fields. They're the ones who sent the distress signal. Can we communicate with them? I believe so. The translation matrix is adapting to their language patterns. Attempting contact. Now, the message reached the Zephyrian command center beneath the capital city. High Mystic Veltar and the surviving council members gathered around their communication array as an alien voice filled the chamber. Unknown species, This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your distress call and have arrived to provide military assistance. Please respond. Veltar's six-fingered hands trembled as she activated the reply system. Admiral Sullivan, this is High Mystic Veltar of the Zephyrian people. We ... We are grateful beyond words. But how is this possible? You are not what we expected. Ma'am, we're not sure what you expected, but we're here to help. What is your current tactical situation? The Void Swarm has been attacking our world for weeks. Our fleet is nearly destroyed. Our shields are failing. We have perhaps hours before our planet is consumed entirely. Admiral Sullivan turned to her tactical officer. Commander Blake, assessment? Commander Ryan Blake studied the enemy formations. The biomechanical ships are definitely hostile. They're actively destroying everything in the system. The alien ... the Zephyrian ships are clearly outmatched. Admiral, Dr. Chun interrupted. I'm receiving a request from the Zephyrians. They want to send a delegation to meet with us directly. Granted. But we maintain alert status. Captain Morrison, prepare a shuttle bay for visitors. An hour later, Captain Morrison stood in Shuttle Bay 2 with a full diplomatic escort. The Zephyrian transport ship was unlike anything humans had ever seen. It looked like a giant crystal that moved through space by bending light around itself. The airlock opened, and High Mystic Veltar stepped through. She was 7 feet tall, with a body that seemed to be made of living crystal. Blue energy flowed through her transparent skin like lightning in a bottle. Her large eyes held both hope and confusion. Captain Morrison, she said, her voice creating harmonics that the translation system converted into English. I must ask you directly. Are you the Deathworlders of Sol 3? Morrison blinked in surprise. Deathworlders? Ma'am, we're from Earth, which is the 3rd planet in the Sol system. Is that what you mean? The ancient texts spoke of warriors from a world so harsh that it bred fighters unlike any other. They said you could be summoned in times of great need. Summoned? Morrison looked confused. Ma'am, we received a distress signal transmitted through subspace. Our translation computers converted your message into standard English. We came because you asked for help. Veltar's bioelectric field flickered with amazement. You mean the summoning ritual was actually a technological transmission? I'm not sure what ritual you're referring to, but yes, we detected your message and responded with our 3rd fleet. 3rd fleet? Veltar's eyes widened. How many fleets do you possess? Currently, we maintain 7 full fleets for the defense of human space, Morrison replied. The 3rd fleet is our rapid response force. The implication struck Veltar like a physical blow. She had expected a handful of mystical warriors. Instead, she had accidentally contacted a spacefaring civilization with multiple military fleets. Captain Morrison, she said carefully, exactly how many ships did you bring? 47 capital ships, 12 carriers, and various support vessels. About 15,000 personnel total. Veltar's legs nearly gave out. Scholar Krindar, who had accompanied her, caught her arm to steady her. 15,000 warriors, she whispered. Well, they're not all combat personnel, Morrison explained. We have engineers, medics, scientists, and support staff. But yes, we brought everything we might need for a major military operation. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Retribution. Admiral Sullivan's voice crackled through the shuttle bay speakers. Captain Morrison, we have incoming. The Void Swarm has detected our presence and is moving to intercept all ships to battle stations. Through the shuttle bay's viewing ports, they could see the dark shapes of swarm ships rising from the planet's surface like a black tide. The biomechanical constructs moved with purpose, their hull configurations shifting as they prepared for combat. High Mystic Veltar, Morrison said formally. "We came here to help you fight these creatures. Will you accept our assistance?" Veltar looked at the human captain, then at the massive Terran fleet arrayed in space beyond. Her people had performed a summoning ritual, hoping for a few mystical warriors. Instead, they had made contact with a civilization that responded to cries for help with entire fleets of warships. "Captain Morrison," she said, "we accept your offer with gratitude. But I must warn you, the Void Swarm has destroyed everything in its path for centuries. They are unlike any enemy you have faced." Morrison smiled grimly. "Ma'am, with respect, you haven't seen what humans are capable when someone threatens. Innocent people. We're about to show you why Earth breeds warriors." The first shots of humanity's first interstellar war were about to be fired, and both species were about to learn that sometimes the greatest alliances are born from the most unexpected misunderstandings. The Void Swarm rose from the planet's surface like a living shadow. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched from the bridge of the Retribution as hundreds of biomechanical ships formed attack formations. Each vessel looked different, as if they had been grown rather than built. "Admiral," Commander Ryan Blake reported, "the enemy ships are adapting their configurations. They're changing shape as we watch." "What's their estimated strength?" Sullivan asked. "Over 900 vessels of various sizes. Some are as large as our dreadnoughts." Blake paused, studying his displays. "Ma'am, they're regenerating damage from previous battles. The Zephyrian energy weapons left scorch marks, but the ships are healing themselves." High Mystic Veltar stood beside the human officers, her crystalline body glowing with nervous energy. "Admiral Sullivan, we have fought these creatures for weeks. Our weapons barely slow them down. They consume matter to repair themselves and grow stronger." Sullivan nodded thoughtfully. "What about their tactics? How do they fight?" "They swarm their targets and overwhelm them with numbers. Once they latch onto a ship, they begin consuming it from the inside." Veltar's bioelectric field dimmed with painful memories. "We lost 300 ships trying to stop them." "Captain Rodriguez." Sullivan called over the communication system. "Are your strike teams ready?" Captain Ben Rodriguez answered from the UES Falcon. "All teams prepared, Admiral. We've studied the enemy formations. They cluster around larger vessels, like they're protecting them." "Those are the command ships," Veltar explained. "Destroy them, and the smaller vessels lose coordination. But they're heavily defended." Sullivan turned to her weapons officer. "What's our ammunition status?" "Full load, Admiral. Nuclear torpedoes, kinetic penetrators, and plasma cannons. We're ready for anything." The Zephyrian mystic looked shocked. "Nuclear weapons? You carry such destructive force?" "Ma'am, on Earth, nuclear fusion is a common power source. We've learned to control it safely." Sullivan smiled grimly. "The Void Swarm is about to learn why humans became the dominant species on a death world. The battle began when the swarm ships accelerated toward the combined human-Zephyrian fleet. The dark vessels moved with unnatural speed, their biomechanical hulls rippling like living tissue. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. Weapons free. Show them what human firepower looks like." The Terran fleet opened fire with everything they had. Nuclear torpedoes streaked through space, followed by streams of kinetic projectiles moving at incredible speeds. The weapons struck the swarm ships with devastating force. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Zephyrian energy weapons were precise and clean. Human weapons were brutal and overwhelming. The first wave of swarm ships simply disappeared in balls of nuclear fire. "Direct hits on 17 enemy vessels," reported the weapons officer. "All targets destroyed, but the swarm kept coming. More ships rose from the planet, and the damaged vessels began regenerating their hulls. The biomechanical creatures adapted. Quickly, their formations spreading out to minimize damage from the nuclear weapons. They're learning, Blake observed. They won't fall for the same tactic twice. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Watson's voice crackled over the communication system from her transport ship. Admiral, request permission to attempt boarding operations. If these things regenerate, maybe we can stop them from the inside. Negative, Colonel? Too dangerous. Ma'am, my Marines are trained for hostile environment operations. We can handle anything. Chief Engineer Tony Garcia interrupted from his station. Admiral, I've been analyzing the enemy ships with the Zephyrian sensors. They have a weakness. The regeneration process requires all their energy. If we can damage multiple systems simultaneously, they can't repair everything at once. Sullivan looked at Veltar. Can your people coordinate with our weapons? Yes, Admiral. Our energy weapons can overload their bioelectric systems, while your kinetic weapons destroy their physical structure. Do it. The combined human Zephyrian fleet began working as one unit. The Zephyrian ships, with their crystal hulls and energy weapons, danced around the swarm vessels like bright stars. Their attacks disrupted the biomechanical ship's ability to regenerate. Meanwhile, human ships pounded the stunned enemies with nuclear fire and kinetic projectiles. The combination was devastating. Swarm ships that had survived weeks of fighting were destroyed in seconds. Commander Lucas Hayes led his fighter squadrons in attack runs against the smaller swarm vessels. His pilots had trained for space combat, but fighting regenerating biomechanical ships was something new. Blue leader to all fighters, he called over the radio. Target their joints and connection points. Don't let them reform. The human fighters moved with precision, their weapons targeting the weak points that Chief Garcia had identified. The swarm vessels tried to adapt, but human pilots were faster and more unpredictable than their previous enemies. Sergeant First Clash Danny Wright watched the battle from the Marine transport ship. His orders were to stay ready for boarding operations, but watching the space battle made him restless. Look at that, he told his squad, pointing at the main display. The Admiral was right. These things have never fought humans before. The tide of battle turned when Captain Rodriguez identified the largest swarm vessel. It was 3 times the size of any human ship, covered in biomechanical armor that seemed to pulse with its own life. Admiral, that's got to be their command ship, he reported. It's coordinating all the others. All ships, concentrate fire on the primary target, Sullivan ordered. The entire Terran fleet focused their weapons on the massive command vessel. Nuclear torpedoes, plasma cannons, and kinetic penetrators hammered the creature's hull. The biomechanical armor tried to regenerate, but the constant bombardment overwhelmed its defenses. Veltar added her flagship's energy weapons to the attack. The crystalline ship's bioelectric cannon sent arcs of pure energy into the command vessel, disrupting its control systems. The giant swarm ship began to break apart. As it died, the smaller vessels around it lost coordination. Some fled toward deep space, while others simply stopped moving and began to drift. Enemy command ship destroyed, Blake reported. The remaining vessels are scattering, but the victory came at a cost. Several human ships had been damaged, and 2 Zephyrian vessels were completely destroyed. The planet below was scarred and burning, its atmosphere poisoned by the long battle. Admiral Sullivan opened a channel to all ships. This is Admiral Sullivan to all vessels. Outstanding work, everyone. We've stopped the swarm's advance, but our job isn't finished. We need to help these people rebuild. High Mystic Veltar looked at the human admiral with something close to worship. Admiral, your people have done the impossible. You've defeated an enemy that has consumed entire star systems. We had help, Sullivan replied. Your energy weapons were crucial to the victory. Neither of us could have won alone. Captain Morrison's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining swarm vessels. They're requesting to withdraw from the system. Sullivan considered for a moment. Grant them safe passage, but make it clear they're not welcome in this region of space again. As the surviving swarm ships limped away into deep space, both human and Zephyrian crews began the work of rescue and recovery. The battle was over, but both species knew their lives had changed forever. The Zephyrians had discovered that their desperate summoning ritual had connected them with the most powerful military force they had ever encountered. The humans had learned that the galaxy was full of species that needed protection from threats they couldn't handle alone. The alliance forged in battle would reshape the galaxy. But first, they had a world to save. 3 weeks after the battle, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the newly constructed Kepler station. The joint human-Zephyrian facility orbited the damaged planet like a symbol of hope. Through the station's crystal windows, she could see repair. Ships working to heal the scars left by the void swarm. The atmospheric processors are working better than expected, Chief Engineer Tony Garcia reported. The Zephyrian biotechnology is amazing. They can literally grow new forests where the swarm burned everything. Sullivan nodded, watching as Zephyrian ships released clouds of seeds that would become new crystal trees within days. Their ability to work with living systems amazed the human engineers. High Mystic Veltar approached, her crystalline body now glowing with renewed strength. Admiral Sullivan, the Council has reached its decision. We formally request membership in what your people call the Terran Alliance. The offer is accepted with honor, Sullivan replied. But you should know, this alliance will change both our peoples forever. Dr. Lisa Chun looked up from her research station. She had spent weeks studying Zephyrian technology and culture. Admiral, their biotechnology could revolutionize human medicine and agriculture, and our manufacturing techniques could help them rebuild faster than ever before. The cultural exchange had been remarkable. Humans learned that Zephyrians could interface directly with their technology through bioelectric fields. The aliens discovered that humans approached problems with a directness they had never encountered. Captain Jake Morrison entered the command center with a serious expression. Admiral, we're receiving reports from Earth. Other alien species have been making contact with our outer colonies. Word about the battle here has spread across the galaxy. What kind of contact? Sullivan asked. Mixed. Some are requesting alliances against common threats. Others are demanding we withdraw from this region of space immediately. Morrison handed her a data pad. Intelligence suggests several species view humanity as a potential threat to galactic stability. Veltar's bioelectric field flickered with concern. Admiral, there are powers in the galaxy that maintain order through fear and control. Your people represent something they cannot understand or control. Commander Ryan Blake studied the tactical reports. 3 different species have made formal protests to something called the Galactic Council. They claim humanity's military response was excessive and threatening. Excessive? Sullivan laughed. We saved an entire species from extinction. That is exactly what worries them, Veltar explained. Most galactic civilizations take months or years to make decisions about military action. You responded to our call within hours and arrived within days. That level of rapid response capability frightens those who prefer slow, careful politics. Dr. Chun looked thoughtful. There's something else. The Zephyrian archives contain information about other species that have faced the void swarm. Most civilizations simply fled when the swarm arrived. We're the first to actually fight them and win. The implications were staggering. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy as a species willing and able to fight threats that others ran from. Some would see them as saviors. Others would see them as dangerous, unpredictable. Captain Ben Rodriguez contacted the station from his ship. Admiral, we've got incoming vessels. 3 different species, all requesting permission to approach. Are they armed? Lightly, but they're broadcasting diplomatic signals. It looks like they want to talk. The first delegation came from a species called the Hegemony. Their ambassador was a tall, thin being with 4 arms and skin like metal. He spoke through a translation device that made his voice sound mechanical. "Humans of Earth," he announced formally, "the Hegemony acknowledges your military capabilities. We offer a trade agreement in exchange for defensive pacts." Sullivan exchanged glances with Veltar. What kind of defensive pacts? Should the Hegemony face threats beyond our ability to handle, we would call upon human military assistance. In return, we offer access to our trade networks and technology. The second delegation was less friendly. The Korthan Empire sent a warrior caste female, whose scales shifted color with her emotions. Currently, they were a threatening red. "The Empire views human expansion with suspicion," she declared. "Your rapid military deployment suggests aggressive intentions. We demand assurances that human forces will not enter Korthan space." Sullivan kept her voice calm. "We have no intention of invading anyone. We responded to a distress call, nothing more. Yet you remain in alien space with a military fleet. Your intentions are unclear." The third delegation surprised everyone. They came from a species humanity had never heard of, calling themselves the Free Traders Coalition. Their representative was a small, furry being with large eyes and a friendly manner. "Humans and Zephyrians," she chittered happily. "The Coalition celebrates your victory over the Void Swarm. For too long, peaceful species have lived in fear of that threat. You have proven it can be defeated." Lieutenant Colonel Amy Watson had been listening to the diplomatic meetings from the Marine barracks. She approached Admiral Sullivan during a break between sessions. "Admiral, with respect, I think we're missing something important here. These aliens keep talking about how unusual our response was. Maybe we should ask why." Sullivan called another meeting with Veltar and the senior staff. "High Mystic, I need to understand something. Why was our response so surprising to other species?" Veltar's bioelectric field dimmed thoughtfully. "Admiral, most galactic civilizations are old and set in their ways. They have elaborate protocols for everything. Military action requires committee approvals, resource allocation studies, and political negotiations. The process can take years. But you were facing extinction," Dr. Chun pointed out. "Yes, and that is why most species would have simply evacuated their populations and abandoned the world. Fighting the Void Swarm was considered impossible." Commander Blake leaned forward. "You're saying that humans are the first species to actually fight back against overwhelming odds?" "Not just fight back," Veltar corrected. "You won. And you did it by responding immediately to strangers who asked for help. Most species would have ignored our call entirely. The revelation changed everything. Humanity had not just made first contact with aliens. They had established themselves as protectors of those who could not protect themselves. The galaxy would never be the same." Communications Officer Maria Santos interrupted with an urgent message. "Admiral, priority transmission from Earth. President wants to speak with you immediately." The conversation with Earth took 3 hours. The President and his advisors were both excited and worried about humanity's new role in galactic politics. They authorized Admiral Sullivan to establish permanent diplomatic relations with any friendly species. As the meeting ended, Captain Morrison approached with the final report of the day. "Admiral, we've received formal requests for assistance from 6 different species. All of them are facing threats they cannot handle alone." Sullivan looked out at the stars surrounding Kepler Station. When High Mystic Veltar had performed her desperate summoning ritual, she had hoped to call forth a handful of warriors. Instead, she had connected her people with a species that would reshape the galaxy. "Signal the fleet," Sullivan ordered. "We're about to become very busy The Terran alliance was born from a misunderstanding, but it would grow into something greater than either species had imagined. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as the guardians that other species called when darkness threatened to consume the light, and in the depths of space, other void swarms detected the energy signatures of the battle at Kepler 442b. They turned their attention toward the region where two species had dared to stand and fight. The real test of the human Zephyrian alliance was yet to come.